open mic on this Backroads Sports Network that has come into being. Our friend Scott Moore is there, Rachel Barbeau, Tommy Tuberville, Bill King, and Mike Johnson. Before we get into our college football discussion, Mike, just a few words on this exciting venture that you're involved in.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, Gary. As you know, I became a free agent a little over a month ago, or I guess a couple of months ago after SEC Country closed down, and Backroads Sports Network came around at just the right time. We have an exciting lineup of sports talk personalities. I'm excited to be on the evening show. I get that kind of role in the evening, Gary, where I get to actually watch some of the sports that are going on at night and get to take people through that. And so far, we're having a good time, and it's 3 hours of just me and my man Troy Tuberville, Tommy's son, who's producing the show right now. And we're just excited, man. We're getting things kicked off, and it's just the tip of the iceberg for us.
Yeah, I'll tell you what else you get to do if you choose, and I know you're probably an early riser, but if you ever want to sleep in, you got the option.
That's exactly right, man. That's exactly right.
All right, let's jump in. Let's start with Alabama, Arkansas State. As I said, I had Kevin Tuberville, the sports editor for the Jonesboro Sun, on, and I followed Arkansas State. I actually covered the game between Alabama and Arkansas State in 1982 at Legion Field when Larry Lacewell came in, close friend to Coach Bryant's, and brought them in there. And, Ray Perkins spent a year there in 1992. And they've kind of become a cradle of coaches. Hugh Freeze, after 1 year, went to Ole Miss. Gus Malzahn, after 1 year, went back to Auburn. Brian Harsin, after 1 year, went to Boise State, where he had previously coached. And now Blake Anderson came in from North Carolina, previously at Southern Miss, before that as offensive coordinator. He's in his fourth year. He's got 30 wins. I mean, this is a team, didn't win the Sun Belt last year, but they've won 5 of the last 7. High-powered offense. I've been telling people here, I like their approach. They're not cocky, but they're confident. If they come in with Justin Hansen and they spread the ball around and they play well, and Alabama's not at its best, that they feel like they could make this game interesting. And I'm telling you what, offensively, I know you break these teams down. They're really good, aren't they, Mike?
Yeah, they're consistent, and they know exactly what they are, Gary. And to me, that's a scary thing. Now, am I going to tell you that Arkansas State's going to go in and beat Alabama?
No.
I'm not. But I think when you look at consistent offenses and consistent programs that have a bread and butter, I think that's the big for me, especially week 1, week 2, week 3. Do these offenses, do these football teams like Arkansas State have something they can hang their hat on? Do they know what they are? Are they a running team? Are they a spread team? Are they a wide receiver screen team? Do they have those bread and butter plays they can hang their hat on? And I think Arkansas State does. I really do. I've loved what I've seen from them so far. They were projected out this year, I think, Gary, to go about 9-3 in their conference. So they're a good football team. They know exactly what they are. They have athletes. They have a decent defensive line. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to be much of a test for Alabama, but in terms of the spread being 35, that's a pretty big number for me. That's a really big number for me, considering that, like I said, Arkansas State knows what they are. They have quality players. They're not going to do anything outlandish or dumb. They're not going to crush themselves with penalties or mental errors. They're going to come in and play their game, and I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I do too. I really do as well. For Alabama, impressive opening game victory over Louisville. The Tide wore them out. Probably could have been worse, let's just be honest. But Tua Tagovailoa gets the start and looked like he picked up right where the national championship game left off. I want to get your analysis of Tua, and then Jalen in what looks like is going to be his new role as the backup. Coach Saban continues to say they'll use his skill set. He didn't post the numbers, obviously, that Tua did, but he was 5 of 9 for 70 yards. He made an attempt to stay in the pocket, keep his eyes downfield. Let's start with Tua. I mean, I know there's a lot of football ahead, and clearly you know how I feel about Jalen. I'm a lot like Coach Saban. I really he has endeared himself to me with what he's done these first 2 years, but Tua Tagovailoa has special talent throwing the football, and even when he looks like he's in trouble, he makes plays. What did you think of that first game where, again, we just saw the magic that he's capable of producing back there throwing the football?
Well, I can tell you one thing that he has, and anybody that's listened to me or listened to me on radio, I always use this word in terms of Tua Tagovailoa, and that's urgency. Like when you're an offensive lineman, Gary, when you're one of these running backs, when you're one of these wide receivers that's waiting on the throw to get to you, Tua Tagovailoa, in his feet and his accuracy, in his footwork and his running plays, he brings a sense of urgency to this offense. There's nobody back there that We used to call it burping the baby. He's not patting the football back in the pocket. His feet are changing. He's bouncing around. He's finding his target. He's getting the ball out. And not only that, he's getting it out and he's getting it out accurately. And I think that's so exciting for this offense moving forward. And you know as well as I do that these wide receiver screens, these bubble, kind of routes out into the flat to the running backs, these have been a staple for Alabama's offense for the last few years, particularly with Jalen Hurts. But Tua Tagovailoa throwing these routes and Jalen Hurts throwing these routes are just two different things. They just are. I'm with you. I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan. But when you see these throws going into the flat, allowing Alabama's playmakers, their wide receivers, their dynamic guys, their Damian Harrises, allowing these guys to get the ball into their hands and allowing those guys to make moves on these secondary defenders to make decisions as to what they're going to do with the ball in their hands, there's really not a comparison. Tua's urgency, Tua's ability to throw the ball accurately has just led to a completely different level for this offense. I mean, you saw some of the RPOs they ran last week. Everybody's on the same page. The receivers are getting the ball in their hands. The other guys around them are turning and looking to throw blocks, and you're going to have a ton of explosive plays out of this offense moving forward with Tua Tagovailoa at the helm. He's extremely accurate, and I love that word urgent that I keep bringing up. He is urgent with his feet, and he's urgent with the ball, and that's a dream come true for the guys up front.
And for Jalen Hurts, I mean, obviously this is a new role for him, and he did look uncomfortable. I guess your analysis of him, and is this the way you think they're going to continue to use him as a guy that isn't just a backup, but someone that's going to get quite a few snaps in the game? What do you see what did you see from Hurts in game one, and what do you see from him going forward?
Well, I think I saw a lot of the same things that we've seen from Jalen the last couple of years. His numbers are going to look okay. He's going to make some good throws. He's going to make some good decisions. The only problem for Jalen Hurts right now, in my opinion, is that Tua Tagovailoa is in front of him. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast right now in college football, and it stinks for Jalen. I'm a huge fan of the way he's carried himself. I think he's done things the right way. I think that's the exact reason you see, Coach Saban snapping at a Maria Taylor or whoever it may be. But facts are facts. And when you look at it, it's just hard to separate yourself mentally from what Tua Tagovailoa brings to the offense. I look at it and I look to the future for Jalen Hurts, and I think that there's endless possibilities, but that's going to be up to Jalen as to what he wants to do. Does he want to continue in this backup role? Does he want to try to do some other things? I got to tell you though, Gary, if it comes down to it, I think looking at this quarterback setup and looking at it in terms of a Major League Baseball rotation to where Jalen Hurts could come in and be a closer or be a setup man and really salt the game in the way in the fourth quarter, I think there's a niche to be had there for Jalen Hurts, and I think that's the way he can serve this football team. But as of right now, there's just so much separation with Tua's accuracy and Tua's footwork and his ability to open this offense that Jalen's going to have to find some snaps and work on getting a little bit better.
Mike, let's move on. I want to talk about some of these marquee matchups coming up in the SEC. I want to start in Columbia. What a game two matchup in the East Division. Georgia, the clear favorite in the East, defending SEC champions, played for the national title against upstart South Carolina. Williams-Brice can be a special place when it's rocking. I expect it to be rocking tomorrow afternoon. I know this is just the second game, but this game's going to reverberate throughout the season in the East Division. And if South Carolina could pull the upset, boy, what it would do for them and what a setback it could be for Georgia. I know the Bulldogs are, close to a 2-touchdown favorite here on the road, but what do you make of this game? And is this a game where South Carolina is good enough that if they play well, get the crowd into it, much like 2010 when Alabama rolled in there ranked number 1 and undefeated and coming off a national championship, could South Carolina pull an upset tomorrow, in your opinion?
Well, I think the possibility's there. I think there's too many playmakers, too many elite offensive playmakers and skill players for there not to be an opportunity for South Carolina. I do like what I've seen out of Jake Bentley and Brian McClendon's offense so far. For the people out there that are listening, if you'll remember, Kurt Roper, a guy that's been with Will Muschamp for years, got fired last year before the bowl game against Michigan. Brian McClendon, the ex-UGA wide receiver, takes over as the offensive coordinator. They're going a little more up-tempo. They're trying to ride the skill set that Jake Bentley has, running a few more RPOs, getting the ball out of his hands. But I got to tell you, and shameless plug here, I just wrote an article about this on the Action Network, and you can find it on my Twitter account. I don't think, in my opinion, that this should be Georgia's game to lose. They're too strong offensively on the offensive line. It's an offensive line that averages 6'5", 327 pounds. Andrew Thomas is going to be a dominant force at left tackle for them. Lamont Galliard, the center, Ben Cleveland, the right guard. They've got playmakers all across the offensive line and in the run game. DeAndre Swift, Elijah Holyfield, Brian Herrion. They're going to do some incredible things offensively. And for me, when I look at this game, give me the 6 and 8 yard runs from Georgia as opposed to the possible 80-yard strike from Jake Bentley to Deebo Samuel. I just think that Georgia's very good defensively. I think they're sound defensively right now, if not elite. And I'm going to take Georgia in this running game and Jake Fromm's ability to get them in the right situation over a flash in the pan that I think South Carolina's offense can be. There's definitely a blueprint. There's definitely a way they can get it done. They've got to, have some long strikes down the field. But Georgia, to me, is that team, Gary, that just throws the body blows. It's not the knockout punches that you have to worry about. Mm-hmm. It's the body blows into the ribs that Georgia ends up taking care of South Carolina with this weekend. And I think that Georgia wins by a couple of touchdowns.
For those that are interested in wagering, or even just for entertainment purposes only, I think this line's around 10 or 11. Do you see South Carolina keeping it within the number?
I don't. I really don't. And I think that it could be a close game, for the first half and maybe into the third quarter. I think that Georgia, you're probably going to find Georgia's up by a touchdown, possibly at halftime. And obviously I could be wrong. I've been wrong on a lot of gambling in my history, Gary. But I look at Georgia up by about a touchdown around halftime, and I look for a couple of late scores to put this game out of reach for South Carolina. Like I said, I like Jake Bentley and I like Deebo Samuel, and I think they have an elite wide receiver core. But give me the body blows. Give me the big men up front in this one for sure.
We'll have to wait another week for SEC West action to begin, but we got another Big East Division matchup. Kentucky last year in Lexington had Florida beat. There's no other way around it. They blew the game. And so that torturous 30-plus game losing streak continued. Now they go to Gainesville. I think they're a 13-point dog, 13.5. Florida, the Dan Mullen era is underway. Give me your thoughts on this matchup tomorrow night in Gainesville.
Well, it seems like the entire offseason, Gary, that I've been higher on Florida than a lot of people have been. They returned all 5 offensive linemen. There's still a little bit left to be desired by the big men out in front of Felipe Franks, but they have an elite wide receiver core, in my opinion. Kadarius Toney, Van Jefferson, Tyree Cleveland, you name it. I mean, they've got playmakers all over the field offensively. And Felipe Franks, for all the questions about who would start at quarterback, would it be Kyle Trask? Would it be Emory Jones? Felipe Franks, to me, looked a little bit, and go back a little bit of ways with me, Gary. Felipe Franks looked like a poor man's version of an early Chris Leak to me. He looked like a 2005 Chris Leak. He even had the little swag towel coming off his belt like Chris Leak used to in those Gators uniforms. I think he played well. He threw for a number of touchdowns. And listen, when I look at Kentucky, I look at the game they had against Central Michigan this past weekend. They didn't look efficient, although they did look explosive at times. But 4 turnovers, I believe, for Kentucky. This number right now, I think, is sitting right around 14. And I got to tell you, I'm taking Florida in this game. I think there's just too many playmakers offensively for Kentucky to be able to keep up defensively. And Florida ends up running away with this one in the end, in my opinion, too.
Interesting matchup in College Station tomorrow night. Kyle Field, A&M gets set to host Clemson. And I'm going to beat myself up come Sunday morning. I know I am. All right. And Clemson's laying 13 here. And they're better. I know that. I'm usually the first person who says don't buy into the new coach hype. But I tell you what, I'm going to buy in a little bit here, Mike. I think that because, Kevin Sumlin had some issues. I don't think recruiting was one of them. They got athletes in College Station. I think Jimbo Fisher's come in. He has added some toughness. They're going to be at home. It's going to be night. Those cadets are going to be loud. And much like the Alabama game last year, when Alabama looked like they were going to blow them out, but couldn't. I see A&M taking this game into the fourth quarter against Clemson. I'm sorry. I think it's going to be. I think Clemson's going to win the game, but I think they're going to have to fight in tooth and nail to do it. And I see them getting out of there maybe with a 8, 9, 10-point win. But I think A&M's going to show the country something. I think Jimbo Fisher's already putting his stamp on this program. I think this is going to be a heck of a game. Now, you may disagree, and that's what I'm about to ask you, how you see it going. But I really think A&M, maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I think they're going to hang in.
Hey, listen, Gary, if you're waking up Sunday morning and you're upset with yourself, and I'm going to be sitting right there next to you upset with myself too, because I've had the same thought process. I really have. I mean, and listen, I've talked about this on my show. I've heard it from Clemson fans. I've seen it from Clemson fans all week on Twitter. But Clemson, to me, has not proven that they are running away with these style of games. I mean, they nearly lost to Auburn a year ago in a game just like this. They did lose to Syracuse a year ago on a Friday night. And I think when you look at Jimbo Fisher's football team, now we've seen a small sample size, and it was over a week ago, and it was against Northwestern State out of Louisiana, but they looked well coached, and they looked like they understood themselves. And it's like I talked about at Arkansas State at the beginning of the segment, they seem to know what they are. They are a Kellen Mond football team that likes to get the ball to Jamon Osmond. They want Travion Williams to be able to run the ball. It looks like they're going to really focus on involving the new tight end, Jace Sternberger, who had, I think, over 100 yards receiving last week. They looked like a team that was locked in and ready to play, and they were hungry. And I have to feel like Clemson is running into a little bit of a buzzsaw this weekend. And I'm not saying that Texas A&M is going to win the game, but Jimbo Fisher understands Dabo Swinney. He understands Kelly Bryant. He understands everything that's going on with this football team. And I'm with you. I think that Texas A&M, being finally a tough and well-coached football team, they haven't been in quite some time. I think they keep this game close well into the second half. And I think Clemson better have their head on a swivel, or you're going to find a lot of people celebrating Saturday night in College Station.
Last game I want to ask you about, Mississippi State at Kansas State. And I'm putting the Bulldogs on upset alert. You don't just roll into Manhattan, Kansas against Bill Snyder and just roll the ball out there and get a win. I think Mississippi State is a good team, but they better watch themselves. I think this is a game that, as I said, I'm putting them on upset alert. I think they'll win the game, but they better be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I sit a little bit on the other side of this. I think the spread sits at Mississippi State -9. And while I'm with you, I think Kansas State's always a dangerous football team with Bill Snyder at the helm. I look back to what happened last year when Vanderbilt rolled into town. And Vanderbilt being able to win that game, to me, told me a lot about what you could possibly see this weekend. And I don't know what Joe Moorhead is. I don't know exactly what we're going to get out of Nick Fitzgerald in his first start of the year. I think there's a lot of questions still left to be asked. But Mississippi State's defensive line, give me Jeffrey Simmons, give me some of the playmakers they're going to have up front. I like their running game with Eris Williams, kind of a two-headed rushing attack. And Nick Fitzgerald coming back in, I think he'll be hungry on the road. So I'm not putting money on this game just because of I don't know exactly what Joe Moorhead is as a head coach, especially at a place like Mississippi State. But if you twisted my arm and forced me to, give me Mississippi State to cover this one by a couple of touchdowns. Going to be a raucous environment, but I think this is the Mississippi State team that really, really wants to plant a flag and make an early season statement. And I'm not putting it out of the realm of possibilities, but they win by a couple of touchdowns.
Wrapping up with Mike Johnson here on the Gary Harris Show on the Bud Light Hotline, powered by Adams Beverages. All right, before I let you go, you know this is coming. Our Atlanta Falcons last night in Philadelphia, just flat out, I don't know what to say. I mean, they were better than Philadelphia last night. They should have won the game. Julio Jones had more yardage in the first half than the Eagles had as a team. But we saw the same old crap. I'll just say it. You know, I don't care what you do up and down the field. You got to score touchdowns, not just the red zone, but inside the 10-yard line. Steve Sarkisian moves from the press box to the sidelines. He's got Greg Knapp up in the booth. I think that's going to help. I thought they did some good things. I don't know if Matt Ryan was hurt in the second half. He didn't look like he had any juice on his throws. The stop and go move that Julio had should have been a touchdown. It was a bad throw over the wrong shoulder. He made an incredible catch. They got robbed by the officials on site and in the replay booth. But enough about that. Bottom line is this offense scored 12 points, and that's ridiculous to me. And I don't know, you know more about it than I do. You play in the National Football League. Maybe I'm being too hard on Sarkisian, but when you have those kind of weapons, you have to be more productive on offense. And I have to point the finger at the offensive coordinator again. Tell me what you saw last night, and how high was your frustration level watching this Falcons offense get inside the 10-yard line time after time and coming up short, including, of course, with 5 cracks at the end of the game? Yeah,
listen. Frustration, I don't even know if it's the correct word for how I felt last night. And I was talking to some of my old teammates. I got a chance to talk to Todd McClure, and anybody that follows Todd McClure on Twitter could see his frustration.
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
It's just it's like beating your head on a wall, Gary. It really is. You see the same old issues, and you think, man, we had 8 months, 7-8 months to get better at these situations and, get another crack at this football game. You saw Atlanta lose out to Philly last year. A very similar set of circumstances, and it continues to drive me crazy. And I understand it. It's never as easy as people on the outside think it is, but there just was so many head scratching moments. And I'm with you. For some reason or another, Matt Ryan and this offensive line, not so much the receiver corps, Matt Ryan and the offensive line just cannot seem to mesh. They don't seem to mesh very well. Matt Ryan's not having the ability to climb the pocket. when the pocket is clean, it seems like Matt Ryan cannot get the ball out on time. They are not on the same page. And I'm with you. I thought in the second half, Matt Ryan's balls looked a little flat. There was not much zip on him. He was not getting the balls of his hands in the hands of his playmakers and allowing them to make secondary moves. And I think that's something Atlanta's going to have to do in the future. Allow guys like Julio Jones the ability to make moves in the secondary and run down the football field. Because in the red zone, flat out frustrating. You can't get the running game going. You go for the fourth down early in the game, which I thought was the right call. I made the mention on the show last night when I was doing it. I once had Mike Shula who kicked the field goal on the 1-yard line, and I'm not sure his career ever recovered from it. So I like running the ball on the 4th and 1 on the goal line. You just have to grow some big boy pants and find a way to get the ball in the end zone if you're Atlanta. I'm not burying their football team for this year. I still think they're incredibly talented. But for a football team that is built around its offense, think about how much money is on the offensive side of the ball for Atlanta. They've got to show me something better than that moving forward, or New Orleans is going to end up running away with this division.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, and wasted a great effort by the Falcons defense last night. Thanks so much, Mike. Follow Mike on Twitter at MPJohnson79 and listen for his new show, Open Mike, on the Backroads Sports Network. Good to catch up with you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Talk to you soon.